Kent, he's gonna be our chaplain. Yeah, he's always comes up with the best prayers, so he's gonna pray for us this morning.
Bow heads. Dear Lord, we like to thank you for allowing us to be here this morning. Lord, we're very thankful that through all the virus and the pandemic, we'd like to thank each and every one that's been here. We ask that you reach out and touch all of us throughout the county, throughout the world, to make this a better place. We ask that we live a safer state, as usual. And we'll allow us to do these things, we give you all the praise. And we say, amen.
Amen. And Mr. Ladner, would you please do it?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the phone, right? I thought y'all was calling, tell us everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
All right, let's start off with, Bill. It is an order concurring with the resolution of Harrison County Development Commission authorizing execution and cancellation of the Economic Development Alliance meeting and alliance and assignment and assumption of leases, a closing statement, and other necessary documents in connection with the sale of 1636 Foxbury Road to Watercourse Acquisition Group LLC as previously approved by the Board of Supervisors, and authorizing the Board President to execute all necessary documents in connection with such conveyance. Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Can you tell us what this is?
There's, in
You
2000,
might want to come up here.
in 2001, there was a loan that the city of Biloxi got for $500,000 to add this 9,600 square foot manufacturing wing to the back of the building. And in that agreement, it said that this agreement's in place until the loan is paid in full. So we have to take what you're doing today, we're paying the loan off tomorrow. It's like we still owe two payments, it's like less than $70,000. And then we have to go to the city of Biloxi and cancel this agreement because it's untitled to the building, so we have to clean all this up and get it closed.
Now, what is the big emergency?
The client would like to purchase the building so they can go ahead and start the renovations and fix the windows and keep the deterioration of the building to, it's going to slow it down. So they anticipate closing next week.
The city of Biloxi is on board, they're agreeing to do this as
It's
well.
not been on the agenda.
It's on the agenda for the 26th. Mike Leonard is now one of our commissioners. He knows we're doing this. He was there yesterday, so they got everything emailed for their stuff.
Any other questions on the board? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion. Okay, under county administrator, consider approving administrator for the CARES Act funds. Pam?
Good morning. I haven't received all the scores yet. I just wanted to bring it back up to the attention, but we still haven't made a decision on that. So, either we'll have to, for discussion, you know, I need to get something back.
I'm halfway through, so I promise I'll get
I know it's- Just wait until June,
Decision,
put it on June 1st if y'all submit those score sheets.
Am I the only hold up?
No, there's only two of us.
Oh, okay, so there's three of us.
Yeah, that would be the.
Thank you.
So I just want to remind you.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to under board agenda, number 3 is discuss opening of the Harrison County Fairgrounds to half capacity.
I'll make a motion, we open them up. Again, like I did the last 2 weeks in a row.
We have a
All right,
motion
we got to say.
and a
Like
second.
that amount, right?
Yes.
Yes, discussion.
And we're saying full capacity?
Well, I have capacity right now, but here's, I also have another discussion item, if we want to vote on this.
Yeah.
And then I've got
I do have a question, what is the capacity?
Well, I don't, it depends on the zone.
That's why we had Pat here. Pat, you had, I asked Pat to come.
That would be,
Because I thought, what most of the casinos are doing that I called, because someone from Natchez called me and asked me what we were doing. And I asked them what they were opening to, and they said they were opening to 50% of what the fire marshal said their capacity is at full 100%.
because that's an open facility.
It is open, but it has a concession stand and office and also some.
Yeah, let me say this, as far as the, I guess I need to approach for this.
Yes, sir.
As far as the fairgrounds, we have not inspected it from a fire standpoint and given a number for occupancy because it's an open facility. The only thing that we do on those kind of things is that we look, if you've got a gated or if you've got a fence, is we look at the exits, because if you had an event that you had to get people out quickly, there needs to be enough exits for those folks to get out there. From a fire perspective, that's not a problem at the fairgrounds because it's open and there's no fire loads or so on. And because the concession stand really doesn't follow that, because we're not letting the public inside the concession stand, that's a workers only type thing. And
The fire could start there. That's about the only place it could start if they had one.
Right, yes, ma'am. So from that perspective, I do not cover, we don't make a number for that. From the shelters and the other facilities, it's been a mixed match. We have in the past not numbered them because we weren't asked to. But what happens initially is when we get plans in there, we measure it, we look at it, we apply some numbers, and then we say, this is what meets International Building Code is the formula that we use. And you can roughly, and this is it's really complex, but the rough thing is, it is for, you take the square footage and you divide that by 15. You take the square footage of the room and divide it by 15, gives you a ballpark figure to start working with. The problem there is if the room is filled full of chairs and tables, that alters your number. If you've got a dance floor and a combination of this, if you've got a bazaar in there with tables, so there's not one number that we've attached to it at this point. I think talking to Mr. Lacy, we had some, I want to say off the top of my head, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I want to say that he said 1,000 people was what the FEMA had said on the shelters originally.
And that was in cots. I think that would have.
It seems to me like that. I've just heard over a period of years that the fire requirement was at the West Harrison Civic Center was 400.
And that very well could be, I don't remember each one, but now we have gone out and done some, yes, sir, it could be. I know we did for the Iberville Community Center because we had the Mardi Gras.
Shouldn't we have that? Because,
Absolutely.
if we have people in there, we've got seniors on one side and you open the hours up a little more, I'm just.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I will get it because it was different in the ground, I suppose, and the tables and the chairs.
Did y'all come up with a capacity?
I think it's 250.
It was some, I don't remember the number, maybe Miss Pam
We
knows.
don't have it.
Yeah.
Miss Pam knows.
Every one of them had a different number.
Yeah, I can't remember now, but I think it's
While she's looking that up, here's the complexity of this. One of the interesting things about it is you can have all of this, but then you have to look at the size of the door. Because if you can put 1,000 people in there, but if you don't have enough doors to get everybody out in a timely fashion, that's a problem. So it's something that you actually have to go measure and do the mathematics on. And so we can do that for you. But primarily the code office has been doing that and we work together with them. It's just not something I can tell you today that this number is this number and that
Sure,
number is that number.
And I'm
Personally, I
personally,
don't.
I should open the outdoor areas of the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
What about the arena?
But it's outdoors too.
Oh,
It's
so
covered,
that,
but
you
there's no
consider the
signs.
arena outdoor?
We do from the fire department, yes, sir, it is.
You see that as an outdoor.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
So I'll amend my motion to an outdoor areas. of the fairgrounds.
We have that, we have a motion, amendment to the motion. So, yes, sir.
I do have a concern here, I just
so y'all know.
Okay.
I got an advertisement for a seminar about the liability of nursing homes for COVID-19. Maybe Congress will do something about that, or we don't have that problem. My concern is, in my view, from a legal standpoint, the person who is running the facility should be responsible for complying with CDC recommendations, the governor's executive orders,
Agree with that.
Absolutely.
not the county. And the question is, are we going in and sanitizing these places before they use them, or is it their responsibility to sanitize it? I mean, we put a provision already that says you're responsible to comply with the governor's executive order. We can straighten that a little bit. The problem is the county gonna go in and
I think so.
Actively-
Go in and sanitize first, and that way, you know.
I understand that every time we're renting a facility for $250, we're gonna go in and
Well, I
spend.
It's
disagree
gonna
with
cost us
Ross.
$250 a man to.
Well, we're gonna discuss that too.
But- At least you got to do at least once.
Well, that grading should have already done that. Have you done that since the facility's been closed? Is everything clean and sanitized?
The fairground? Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
So it should be ready for this point.
But that
And
was
then
my-
it's on the person who leases it to
Did you,
follow the guidelines.
that was my point.
did you hire somebody to do that, or how did?
No, we did it ourselves. We mainly focus on the concession stand, the railing areas where the crowd sits, and the bathroom. That's pretty much what we focus on, because that's where the most high traffic areas are. Now, of course, stalls or whatnot like that, we're pulling them up, so they won't be here in the next week or so.
I personally think that whatever it is that we need to do that. Take all the pressure off of us and turn it good.
But then,
In my opinion, the agreement, whatever we're doing, we should modify our agreement, so that the person who's running the facility is responsible for the people it's bringing in, and that includes sanitize, even though we're gonna clean it ourselves. We shouldn't take on that responsibility. If they want it sanitized for their people they're bringing in, and they're charging admission for them, then they should make an attempt to sanitize before they hold their event. We're renting a facility for really pennies. And so the county should not take on that potential liability. I don't know if it'll be a liability or not. My concern is if we allow people to, I've said this before, we can't, it's not advisable for the board unless we want to take on the governor to permit people to violate the governor's executive order. I'm not worried about the governor getting mad. I'm worried about somebody saying, well, you're liable because you didn't follow what the governor said. And that would be my concern. So if we make it the responsibility of the people in the facility, that doesn't completely exonerate us from being, a claim being made, but it certainly gives us a strong defense. That's not our responsibility.
Can we add that in with the contract?
Yes, we actually did that on the one contract that we had the issue about. The question came up, and Mr. Benfield's here, so our benefit is danger, and what we were trying to stress to everybody is they were asking us questions about what they could do under the governor's order. My advice was to everybody that asked me, do not tell, the governor orders are there for them to read and interpret. I know they probably didn't like that, but, you know, if we tell them how to interpret the governor's order and we're wrong, those orders are confusing. I'm not criticizing the governor, they're just confusing. And we're wrong on it, and now we've subjected the county to liability of how we interpret it. So everybody can read the orders and they make decisions. So, for instance, in the barrel race, I didn't have a bit of problem. They had 200 people out there and spread them out 20. So they complied. I thought that was a good interpretation of the governor's order. Couldn't say that because if the governor showed up and said, you're violating, and the first thing I would have said was the board attorney said you could do that. So that was the problem we were dealing with. We didn't want to commit, and everybody that asked me kept saying, no, you cannot. Let them read the orders and they can decide. I feel the same way. I'm in favor of opening them. I'm with y'all. I think the outdoor arenas particularly
But
are.
we can't afford to take the liability.
I say just add that to the
We
lease.
will.
Put the liability on the renter.
That's right. Responsibility on the renter.
Responsibility there, and open it up, I'm ready. Keep going.
I have one question.
I'm sorry, instead of telling them to call Jackson, let's send our clients the order.
That's what we do.
Here's the order.
I ain't got a problem. There's
There's several.
And I'll tell you why.
You only make them jump through hoops.
Right, the
Here it
reason
is, your
The
interpretation.
reason I didn't say it was 7 o'clock in the morning when I was answering the email I got.
Yeah.
The second thing, it was, there must be, now there's probably 10 of them, if not 12 of them. And the way the governor's orders read, you have to read all of them because they're still adopt the previous orders. It's really a mess. And so if I sent it to them, what it was gonna do is generate a gazillion questions that was,
No, that's when you say, I can't answer those questions.
I understand,
That's what we said, I think.
Yeah.
that's what we were trying to say. I really was hoping I had a telephone number, I would pick up the phone and say, look, you could have two people this problem. But if the governor shows up, that's your problem, not ours, that's what I was trying to say.
Tim, I think problem kind of exists too in some cases where subsequent orders changes part of the previous orders, so that's where you gotta be careful, but it doesn't change the whole order.
That's right.
Still,
You have to read all.
you have to read them all because it changes, but it's not a total change.
No, it's a mess.
It's-
Man, I don't mean to criticize, but just the nature of the beast, what they've done. They've got one order that started it, but still has aspects of it that are still in effect, and then they, at various times, have changed this,
Was
that,
the
and that.
governor into barrel racing?
I don't know, I'm not worried about him showing up, but WWX would show up, and I'm not criticizing
They did
WWX.
call it.
So who told you you could have 200 people out here?
You get one person.
Guess who's gonna get blamed for that? My job is to
Them,
protect the
us,
board.
and everybody else.
Well, let's
That's
just
not
take
fair.
the liability responsibility back on the person doing the leasing, and then it's up to them.
I have a question. When you were in that seminar, did you?
I didn't know, I just got the
No,
notice.
you did.
The invitation, I didn't attend.
So we don't know where the safe harbor, that's the federal law that gives businesses and people like us the ability to not be sued if someone comes up with after they've been to an event or worked in a business and come down with the virus, that won't be blaming and suing the business. Is that correct?
That is, I'm a claims lawyer by heart, but I don't agree that people should be liable for a virus. That's not something anybody can control. You can't see it, it's not like you can say, this person got it, this person doesn't most of the time. Some people
But we're
should.
following that. We need to probably send a letter of support and tell them
I think there's.
we're in favor of the safe harbor law, for
I
sure.
think the letter from us will feel like a little,
Yeah, I know. But you always gotta,
there's a lot of people fighting over
there's a
that.
lot of little flies that make a big, big stink. sometimes.
Money is what it's about, unfortunately, so I think Washington, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who got a lot more lobbying power than we do.
I think the leadership in Washington has indicated that they're interested in that and want to do it, but it's not gonna be blanket. There's still gonna be some potential liability that they're gonna reduce a lot of. I think that's kind of where the issue
Because
is.
people are afraid to open, businesses are afraid to open because they're afraid they'll be sued. They can't get their employees back to work. So in some
My
cases,
philosophy has always been do what's right, don't worry about getting sued.
yeah.
Most of that takes care of itself if you're right.
And let me just clarify my motion is for the outdoor areas
Right.
of the fairground, which in my opinion, does not open that concession stand. Y'all have the same mindset on that, or how we, because I know that's something y'all.
Yeah, we normally have 3 to 4 people working in that
I
concession.
think what we need to do is address how you can have the concession stand open and still maintain some safety issues.
What I would suggest, we've gotten other areas, a comparison on the other areas, all other arenas that are our size of our particular area, all require a food permit, a licensed food permit holder to work their concession stands. So I think we probably ought to do that, if for no other reason right now, they are under very specific guidelines from the health department, thank you, that they have to have mask, gloves, they have to sanitize before, after, during. So I would suggest maybe we adopt that for right now. It has to be a licensed food permit holder, and you can still make some funds out of that, because what you could do is go get a licensed food permit holder, a caterer, for lack of a better word, and work a deal with agreement with them that, you know what, I'll hire you to work this concession, and in exchange, maybe you pay me 10% or 15% of your profits. And which is similar to what the Coliseum, or the agreement they have with Levy, their food and beverage supplier. They handle all the food and beverage sales, and then the Coliseum Commission itself gets 8% of those sales. So it could still be possible to offer some type of concession, but it would put the sanitation and reliability on the licensed food permit holder. So I would really like to see us do that. Because if they're gonna be out there all day, they're obviously gonna be looking for food and drink. And these licensed food permit holders are already practicing this sanitation and the safety. They have a serve safe person that has to go through classes.
We
So
could
I
have
would like,
somebody under contract that does that for the leagues and the soccer.
right,
Yeah.
this
So
could be
they can contract with
They get
that.
Whoever they
group.
choose.
like
Whatever
them to
they
choose
choose.
their
It
own.
could be a
licensed
caterer.
food permit person.
per event.
Per event, if they want to, if you don't have, you know, but you just can't have a concession. But you can choose who you would like and work your agreement out with them so that you could, if that's what you want. Now, if you just want to be able to offer food and beverage, then do that, you know, tell the caterer that you hire or whoever the food permit holder is. If you'll just come out there and work it, you keep all of it.
Something with a provision that they can't have concessions as long as they hire.
The license.
Licensed food permit holder, because that to me then would cover.
And Greg, we need to see that. We need to have that as part of the contract, and it needs to come to the board for review so that we can make sure. You probably might want to call the health department and make sure who is reputable. And
No,
make that
what you
list
do,
of
no,
them.
what you do is, when they come up, if I came up with a caterer, like Naomi's caterer, for instance, to work that concession, then you require a copy of their food license.
Yes, yes, ma'am. That's what we'll do
That's all
whenever we
you have
sign
to
the
do, is
contract.
have me a copy of your food permit,
Yes, ma'am.
otherwise you don't get in there.
Yes, ma'am.
And it'll be dated and signed, you know, they're used to that, these caterers and like these food trucks, they have food permits. So,
Are we making this a general policy in all the concessions because we have concession stands at all the ball fields? And concessions is a money-making
mhm.
process for these little leagues and all that, so are we implementing this as
Right now, I'm
the
just
board
focused.
concession or just the fair?
I'm just focused on the fairgrounds right now, because I know some of the soccer fields, we've got a contract person that does it with these
On
terms.
soccer, but on the regular little league.
Well, they have-
fields,
We have one at social.
That's been.
To have it available, it has not been implemented at all the, we've had that exact issue on the smaller leagues, and they're just bringing a grill and frying hamburgers and hot dogs. So we have not been able to, and it's probably not enough activity for a license permit, so.
But for an event at the fairgrounds, it
Fairgrounds
would be,
bigger.
And they're
it's
happy.
bigger, it'd be a bigger event. So,
I kind of think for the conceivable future, it should just be across the board. You know, and once, you know, you look at the NFL and the NBA, they're looking at going without fans and no concession.
And I agree, especially now in like this
It's just a
pandemic.
little tough right now.
We can always get revisited and all, but right now, during this
We need to think about it.
pandemic, it's something
I
that
think we need to think about it, because there's some issues maybe out there that we have thought of, especially as a reference to state, but at the same time, we need to be cognizant of our responsibility for safety. I've always wondered what happens if you have a problem with selling food and sickness occurs, you know, who's liable for it, and I think that's your concern and what you're pointing out.
Right, I mean, it's.
If you get a foodborne illness in a restaurant, and forgive me, because you know, I kind of have background in this. If you get a foodborne illness in a restaurant, the permit holder is the one that's responsible. So that's another reason why I kind of want this licensed permit holder. They know that they have to keep those temperatures. Hot food needs to be hot, cold food needs to be cold. It's pretty simple premise, but you'd be surprised at people that take hot dogs out, leave them sitting there, and next thing you know, the temperature's dropped on them. That's where your foodborne illness comes.
Let me tell you, that I can think of another issue that ultimately is gonna come up. Just take all the possible unforeseen consequences. For example, in your Civic Center, you have weddings. A lot of those people cook that food in those Civic Centers. They keep, we have kitchens. We have kitchens in the, shelters that, people use and cook their own food. So, I mean, you're talking about a problem, some unforeseen consequences, that if you get a broad policy, that the county's not gonna allow any type of food processing other than with certified vendors. There's gonna be some things we need to look at, and it's gonna affect a lot of people and a lot of
That is. And like the wedding that's at the Outfield Civic Center that they've been making, now she has a figure, because I did ask that question. She does have a figure, is it?
Some
But
of them
doesn't
will
that
tell
get
you, but
back
some of them will
to-
do it themselves. They'll throw parties, they'll have Christmas parties where they club will put on
But I think for right now, we need to address this, because y'all were sitting on ready.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, a lot of the income is from concession, so
But
that's
you
what we
might
like
have
to
to
do.
just rearrange.
I don't
that.
see any difference in what we're doing in a Little League baseball game.
Well, there is.
Well,
That's the
if
problem,
market
too.
is social, we don't.
You know what I mean, as far as concession,
Yeah,
hamburgers and hot dogs, that's about what we normally serve.
Well, I've always had, with all due respect, I've never liked the idea of just anybody can walk in and start selling food for the reasons I just gave. And I really believe there's a safety issue, especially now, in this pandemic, especially now. I mean, look at with the restaurants that they're having to jump through right now. All their servers wear masks, their chefs wear masks, health department's on, they're inspecting them before, during, after. I mean, normally they would have an inspection every quarter, now I think they're doing it about once a quarter.
And I agree with that also, but I don't agree that certain places could
I'm
do it,
sorry,
certain
sir,
places can't.
I can't allow, if you want to be recognized, we can have to be recognized and you can come
Okay.
forward, but you just can't.
it.
It's hard to, it's sorry.
Yeah, she was speaking directly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Tim, I guess the question would be that just like you place it in the contract, you placing for the onus on the, I guess, the leasing of the facility to maintain the governor's orders, all kinds of safety. Could the contract also impose on the leasee for certain restrictions to make sure that food is properly, I don't know that we can get into all that, but
Let me say to you this way, the problem that you're dealing with, the more control that you exercise, the more potential liability you have. So when you go in and specify, if you're gonna provide your own food, you gotta do X, Y, and Z. And then you have something in place to ensure they did X, Y, and Z, and they don't do it, somebody gets sick, then that's gonna point out that you're liable. We've had this discussion several times about you gotta either decide, it's like recreation. If we decide we're gonna have a recreation department and we're gonna run the whole thing, or we just have a piece of property that we lease to somebody and they wanna have a baseball game. And so you're not taking the responsibility of, doing all these different things. That's kind of the danger. The more control you exercise, the more potential liability you have. Because then you must have somebody in place to ensure what you contract to make them do, they do.
they do it, yeah.
So
So right now, I think we all agree that we want to try to open fairgrounds, which is the subject we're on now. So on a case by case, I would say let's take this up. The next item on the agenda deals with the community and civic centers. We can take up the same issue, which I'm pretty clear how I feel about that. But that's because my background in food and beverage, I've seen it happen. And it only takes one time. Now, I've never seen it in a pandemic like this, but I have seen foodborne illnesses, and I'm telling you, it'll spread
Yeah.
about like this virus. Everybody that's ate that same salad with bad lettuce in it.
I had it one time, that's not funny.
That is, took out a friend of mine's entire wedding party, everybody was sick.
It happened right before this pandemic. They had-
And the restaurant paid for the whole reception.
So,
The movie Bridesmaids.
I guess the question that I'm asking, Tim, is we seem to be talking about concerns with liability as far as the county or somebody else. When you have a leasee and a leaseor, when you had those agreements, us being the leaseor, I presume, are we assuming any, once we, the lease itself, the fact that we're saying you're leasing our facility, does that release us
No,
from any liability? Or do we have to specifically state it in there?
You never, no, you never put a hold harmless and indemnification agreement. That's only as good as the person you can sue. If they don't have any money, you can sue them anyway. But
Right.
it depends on how far you want to go with it. You're never, somebody's gonna make a claim.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that they're gonna win. Claims get filed every day, and we've won just probably 99% of all the cases that have been filed in the county, unfortunately. Even when they've made allegations, I mean, we've been pretty successful with that. So you don't really worry about the lawsuits so much. What's difficult is what I just said. If we do an agreement where we put all these conditions, you must sanitize the booth, you must do this, do that. Whatever you do, the more control you have, the more potential for liability you have. So that's just the simple facts of it. If you just lease a facility and it says you're responsible, lessee is responsible for all this, you've now set up a contractual defense to any claims. So that's what we're looking for.
Can I ask a question? We do have certain rules and regulations though, such as no smoking and, you know, those different rules and regulations when we do lease it. So I think and I'm not putting words in your mouth, I think what our supervisor needs, and that be part of the lease, especially during this time. And
Whatever would be said about this money.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, rules and regulations, could that be part of the lease, at least until after this, we can revisit this after this pandemic settles down.
I'm just saying, right now, especially, we need to address this food and beverage deal, because that's where your potential, according to the Center for Disease Control, has the highest potential for spreading this virus. Hence the reason why the restaurants were just allowed to open last Thursday under very strict guidelines. So for right now, I would definitely like for us to require that.
And the graduation that's going on, they're giving a bottle of water at the door, but they are not opening the concession at all for the Harrison County. Graduation, Coliseum's not opening theirs at all. I don't know, they're having little practices, I think, out at the ball fields now with 20 people. Their concession stand is not open at all. So I think this is a way for you to get your concession stand open and serve it, and have service, but use
Use
necessary.
food permit license holder, that's what you need to use.
We can always massage this as we move forward.
Yeah, and we'll revisit this.
Yeah, but right now, in order to get this ball rolling.
And the only thing that I said, apparently they've had plans that, to do this. And I think it's just trying to- I understand the safety issues. I wish we had some way to guarantee it, but I don't think we can. I think we lease the facility and it's their responsibility to see that they do what it's supposed to be done.
One thing, that concession stands a whole different
People,
deal.
the people that's going to these activities have some responsibility. They don't, I don't know if that's but if I walk up to that facility and I order a hamburger, I'm responsible enough to know that what the potential is.
If it's on a county facility.
No,
But that's what I'm saying, we lease it. And the less we put in there, I think the more protection we have.
I don't have a problem with the supervisions with this suggestion. One is that they're responsible for complying with CDC, governor's orders, whatever. Leslie is responsible to comply with that in the county.
And I think that would
And
apply to
and the
food.
licensed food service.
I'll amend my motion to include that order, but I also want to amend it to require a licensed food permit if they're going to use that concession. I just can't go along with it.
Then you've got Department of Health monitoring that.
It's their guidelines. They're the ones that can check it, monitor it. And if these people do events over and over and over, then there's nothing preventing you from getting a caterer's permit. You can apply and get a
Just
caterer's
so
permit.
the board knows that soccer is a perfect example where they've always had a licensed food vendor do their concessions. And the soccer association gets a percentage of the gig, if you will, the sales. And so it's licensed, it's not something they're doing themselves. So it is available out there and they still benefit from it. Of course, they have 1,200 people coming in.
I would go along with that as long as we definitely revisit it because of, especially your area, having to have the small teams and they do the lines, they enhance our fields for nothing. And the little piddly money they make is from those hamburger grills. So it's not fair to the little small guys to make them get a license first because they won't have the volume.
Well, I will say that in Full Market and in Scotia, they were happy because they have a very hard time trying to find volunteers that work. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't show up, but they are done that. So they're happy with the.
I'll give you the guy's number because I've heard otherwise. They came up to me at a wedding I was playing and said that this was really, really hurting and they couldn't afford jerseys anymore because they lost their concession.
That's all been taken care of. And they met with us and we talked to them.
Since February? Is it recently? Good.
One thing about the ball fields, just so you know, it's very difficult to do an agreement when you have so many varieties of different ways they all do it. These small leagues, really the small ones, are even more difficult.
Right.
We met with them, probably 20 of them one time, and each one of them had a different aspect of what they did. So it gets really difficult to draw, and we've tried to get some consistency, and it's very difficult because of that. They're just neighborhood leagues, and their parents going out there with their children and taking a grill and cooking burgers. And I thought, I got no problem with that. That's okay, as long as we have an agreement, that's your responsibility. But then you have a.
Okay, we call the question.
Question.
All those in favor?
No, it's okay. The motion is, can I state what
Wait.
The motion is to approve opening the outdoor area of the fairgrounds to have capacity and to put two provisions in the lease that they need to have a licensed food permit holder for the concession stands and that the listing must comply with all CDC and governor's orders.
Yes, but I think we already agreed to have capacity.
I think that.
Does that make sense? So delete that.
We can
I
delete,
don't know what capacity it is.
So
It's Martin.
as long as they comply with the governor's order, that they.
So you want to say
it's Martin, so it's clear for the record, so it's clear for the record.
No,
We'll ask her to amend her motion to take out 50%. I think she's already done it. We have amendments, do we have a second for the amendment? Mr. Ladner will second that amendment. Second amendment to take out the 50% of the capacity. Okay. So we have, the order and we already voted it.
Vote on that.
Okay, we have the amendment vote is what we'll take first. All those in favor of the amendment of taking out the 50% capacity, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Mayor, before we take further discussion, I still have a problem with imposing on them the conditions that Beverly was talking about. I think there'd be other ways to make sure that they're safe. I just have a problem with that because we talk about small groups.
We're just talking about the amendment of
Just the
50% right now.
Oh,
Just the 50%,
yes, okay.
that's all we're talking about. Okay. So all those in favor of the amendment, which only addresses the 50% of the original motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. Now, we would have a motion to, we'll have a motion to open the fairgrounds.
With the two requirements.
Two requirements, which are,
Follow the governor's guidelines and have a license fee permit.
May I make a suggestion that we vote on each one separately?
Okay. We can do that. So the first motion I'll make then is to open the outdoor areas of the fairgrounds and follow the governor's guidelines.
CDC.
let's do motion and discussion. We have a motion, we have a second. Discussion,
I think somewhere in there we say, well, that we want to be business, but this is not permanent.
Yes.
This is just.
On the second one, please.
No, this open fairground for the last motion, this is talking about the
No,
This is opening it following the guidelines, opening the full capacity following the guidelines of the
Right.
CDC and the governor.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried.
now I'll make a motion that we require a licensed food permit holder to run a concession stand with the agreement that we will revisit that requirement at a later date.
And that would be during this time of the COVID-19. Okay.
Specifically the fairgrounds.
Specifically the fairgrounds. We have a motion. We have a second. Do you have a second?
Yeah, I second.
Second?
As long as it's
Discussion.
temporary.
Just with the agreement that we will revisit.
For discussion.
The second discussion? You had some discussion?
Just as long as it is only temporary and only the fairgrounds, and we revisit it as soon as this is over. Do we put a time limit on when we revisit it?
Beginning time.
We can talk about it at every meeting if
How
you want
many
to.
contracts are do you anticipate when they agree
Whatever you got on.
here I mean, within the next week or so?
Within this next week,
Week or so,
No, the next.
This is the next 3 months.
several weeks.
next 3 months, we're looking at having maybe another, I would say 7 or 8 events.
And those 7 or 8 events will have concessions.
Yes, they all do, every one of them.
How large are those?
They vary. Some are as small as 25 people, some are as big as 150 to 200 people.
Now, how in the world is somebody anticipating 25 people or 30 people gonna get a
And
contractual caterer to come out and
Why
get
would
25 or
somebody-
30 people?
Why would you
Eliminate-
want to open a concession stand?
Well, I don't know, they might, that's some point.
And they do because they're out there all day long. They start normally at about maybe 8 or 9 in the morning, and they don't leave until maybe 3 or 4 that evening.
That's what I'm saying, you're fixing it
And
in
there
those
are-
conditions that, I think we're being a little premature. I understand the safety concerns, don't misunderstand me, but I think there's some unforeseen consequences that when we do this, it's gonna impose some burdens on some people that normally they wouldn't have to have. You got different sizes, they're gonna have difficulty. I could assume if I were a caterer is gonna require a certain number of people. And they're not gonna make, if they don't feel like they're gonna make enough money, it's not gonna be worth the while. So those folks are not gonna be able to have a concession.
But the caterers I've talked to, with all due respect, they're suffering some business, so I'm kind of thinking. But that's why I added in the motion to revisit, with consideration to revisit.
Yeah, this is a,
What I'm saying is,
Right now,
to be visited,
I'm
but
not
the
gonna.
consequences can exist in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and next month or so.
That's a really simple solution to it. The board's understood was require all these contracts to come from the board for approval, as what you said earlier. In the meantime, so you can make sure that things are in there. That's what I'm supposed to say. So if you've got that situation where that person said we want to have a hamburger grill out there, you can address it. They can't afford to do a vendor, you address it on a case-by-case basis. So they bring a contract, Greg will know that they're not, can't afford to do a license, help, they can just bring it to the board at that time to decide whether or not that's a yes or a no.
Have we already approved?
wait,
If they have a contract, these upcoming events, then their contract is pretty much business as usual. Okay. So what they thinking, they can do this full concession, whatever, because that contract's been signed some months ago.
but,
We don't have any.
We don't have any.
Do they have a signed contract?
We have, I'm sorry, I have the information at the moment, but I believe there's a few of them that do.
Because they could have booked this back in January.
but if I may say,
Absolutely.
if I may.
Back in January, we didn't have the coronavirus.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying though, is it's saying just something to consider, because when they looked at their budget and their promotion was inclusive. of
Have they
that.
paid, how many paid deposit contracts do you have?
May I speak?
Yes, ma'am. Pam,
From
Orange.
that, Ms.
They sent me a list for the next month, I guess, for June and July.
Yes, ma'am.
And a lot of those are at the Rockin' H facility, so I'm assuming that's when you're saying there's only like 25 or
Yes,
whatever, that's a smaller facility.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and most of that, do they do concessions
They do.
from that
Each
facility?
and every last one of them do concessions.
That's a great.
I'm showing he has May the 30th, which has been canceled.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so June the 5th, that's at the fairgrounds. Is that still, you did,
Which
June
one
the
is that?
5th was a pro wrestling?
No, they canceled that.
Okay. Then we have June 19th through the 21st is Gail Maury and Hancock Riding Club. That was approved. I don't know if it's been,
Is it on or off?
It is still on.
Now, do you have
And
the,
if, according to if the board opens up the facility, it's on. But as
do
of
you
right
have
now,
the deposit, do you have the deposit
Yes,
and
ma'am.
contract,
And
and it's here?
yeah, those have been on the
I
minutes.
believe it's already been,
These are ones that's been on the minutes
Yes,
and
ma'am.
approved by the board. And then Rockin' H has July the 11th and August the 8th. July the 11th, these are all South Mississippi Horse Show, all three of those.
yes, that's another small event.
And so that's at Rockin' H. But I don't have anything else for the fairgrounds other than, I guess, they're not any for the fairgrounds?
No,
So
ma'am, that's all
what did
that.
you have at the fairground? Right now on the books, because I know.
Right now-
you signed a contract yet, because I just asked you yesterday. for a contract.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right now on the books, what Ms. Pam just presented to us, what we have on the books, and passed by the board with a deposit, contract.
At the fairgrounds, I'm not talking about that Rockin' H.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking
That's
about-
all
I believe it's just one.
That's
Okay.
all
She's got
Rockin'
one.
H, fairgrounds,
I think it's in June.
the one I see, that was the June 5th was the pro wrestling.
So I think
It's
it's-
out.
June the 9th through the 21st, is that at the fairgrounds or is that at?
That's at the fairgrounds.
Okay, so that's the only one at the
Yes, ma'am. That's the only one at the fairgrounds. Yes,
So
ma'am.
you only got one.
I only have one on the books. Yes, ma'am.
It says Sun and Fun American.
That's the AQHA show.
Sir, would you like to come up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's
Let's
only
bring it.
one thing on the books.
For the fairgrounds.
Mr. Bennett.
What I'm interested in, Bill, have they do we have a contractual obligation with them right now?
They don't have a contract.
But if we approve that,
But he's gonna,
No,
we have not.
Mr. Benefield and Shannon, please
Mr.
spread your
Benefield.
name and address.
don't say that, I'm trying to get.
look, we do not have, and I appreciate that as a supervisor, I want to speak first. We do not have a signed contract from them for this event that she's wanting to do July 20th. As of right now, we do not have a signed contract. And if we do, we do not.
No, we couldn't get the signed
We
contract.
couldn't, we
Yeah,
couldn't sign
sign
it
it.
last week. We couldn't sign it last week. We
We
tried.
could have, but.
No, we couldn't. Shannon emailed me back and said they cannot take deposits or cannot sign contracts because the arena wasn't available.
It was closed last week.
Okay.
That's correct, because we informed him not to take any news.
That's why we couldn't take the contract.
But still, this ain't something that was booked prior to the coronavirus.
That's my right to wrong.
Well, I had given my
That's what
dates to
I'm talking
Greg,
about.
beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's the giving dates and signing the contract. Ain't what causes it.
Well, no, I knew that we needed to sign the contract.
I'm not worried.
But, my other thing was, I don't know of a safer place to cook besides the section at the Harrison County Fairgrounds. It's closed windows, doors, there's nobody in there where the cooking's going on. So you actually open, slide the window open, pass some food out, shut the window. You know, I just think if you're gonna do this, I hate to see little kids suffer at a ball game, but I think if you did it for one, you have to do it for every county facility. That's what I would think.
That it,
To explain it, the motion that's on the table, this Martin's motion, is a temporary thing.
Correct.
Coronavirus, so we're not making any of it permanent. If this motion is approved, it's not a permanent thing applicable to either the fairgrounds or the ball fields. It's just a temporary thing due to the COVID. But my concern is that, and as Supervisor Jones said, that we have agreements or contractual agreements out there that people thought they were gonna be able to do this. It's kind of bad to go back and impose some additional conditions on.
But we don't, we got.
Got one.
You got
Y'all are
one.
missing, I think, the biggest issue that we have, and the biggest issue is that we are in a pandemic. We are trying to reopen the economy. We are trying to work with every single person that we can, but everybody's got to give and take. It can't be, you get to open it, you're getting to have it, you're getting to have someone there that will, feed the people, and you'll get a percentage of that. We're trying to do the best we can to help everybody, but everybody's it's gonna have to be a give and take on both sides of this issue. You may have to give up a little bit of your concession so that you can have your event. But that's because we're trying to help you and we're trying to get the economy. But this is a serious issue in the pandemic issue.
We
that
are
needs to be
well aware of
addressed.
that. That's why I keep emphasizing to try to address safety issues, but at the same time allow people to proceed and have their activities and events. I'm well aware of that. Not that I'm not aware of a pandemic. By God, I'm well aware of that.
Well, it
And I'm
just,
trying to address the issues that Supervisor Martin had brought up and concern about safety. And we trying to come up with some solution that is going to, both, as you indicate, we want to make sure that people are safe, but at the same time, give people opportunities to have these activities that they want to have. So I know it's a balancing act. That's why I'm trying to find the balance. Not that I'm not aware of no pandemic going on.
I
You have to
know,
be
I was,
over in a cave for the last 3 or 4 months, so I realize that.
Would it be better if we said, okay, to be revisited in 60 days? You want to put a time on it?
I don't know if we can put a time on it. I'm thinking right now, we're following the guidelines of the state and the CDC, so whatever comes down, we have to revisit that.
It's subject to change every.
At any time, yeah.
even restaurants are going through the masks and everybody's making a lot of allowances and we're just trying to help. We're trying to help everybody get back to normal or some type of normal.
Well, I'll stick to the
You
motion.
call it-
Yeah.
One of the suggestions, quickly, one of the suggestions in your motion, that as to the existing contract, that the facility should not be open unless they agree to modify the contract to address the 2 issues. That way, right now, their contract is, the facility's closed, contract basically, so they need to comply with these new directives that they have in the existing contract. Otherwise, you don't open the facility. It's not, these are not onerous impositions, they're just simply saying it's your responsibility to comply with governing orders of CDC and the concessions. That's a decision the board makes.
I'm trying to make that
But
decision.
again, these issues are going to come back before the boards, and I'm saying on an individual contractual basis. So if an individual contractual person comes and says, I've got a problem with the concessions for this reason, they can bring it back to the board, and the board can say, no, in this case, we'll allow it. So you're going to have an opportunity on an individual basis. If somebody comes and says, we can't afford to do this deal with this license, help, with permit fee. The board will have a chance to make that decision.
Just do it.
Is it such a thing as a temporary?
Everything's
temporary,
temporary
so-
right now.
I mean,
There's a temporary liquor
That's-
license.
If I may,
a temporary food permit?
Yes.
we can vote on the motion goes forward now. And then I think these folks are here. Let's give them an opportunity to address us as to whether they can contract out as Martin is suggesting, or whether the board can exempt them and allow them to do their own, as Tim suggested. So we'll.
But they don't have an existing contract, but that's fine.
I know they don't have an existing contract, but while they're here, if once we open it up, which we're about to do, then they're gonna be able to go out there 5 minutes with Greg and get a contract. So why send them, let's deal with them while they're here. Give us, we all know this has been going on for how long now? I thought they had an event that we had allowed them to do. I don't know about the official contract, but I understand that the board had conveyed to them the right to have that activity.
Yes,
Am I wrong?
that's correct.
Not this show, but the one that she canceled.
Hey, nine.
May 9th.
Yeah.
But, so that one was canceled, now you're gonna have another. This is basically the same event?
Yes,
It'll be a smaller one.
there's gonna be a smaller one, the
Oh,
bigger one's
smaller.
July 11th at Harrison
That's my
County
suggestion,
Fairgrounds.
let's vote on it, and I don't have a problem.
What you want to call it?
But let's vote on the motion first, and then we know they're gonna go out and meet Greg and try to sign a contract to have this event. So what Tim is suggesting, what we're voting on is to allow each party that's gonna contract with us at the fairground to be able to address the board whether they have to, get a contract for the concession, or whether we will allow them
That's not
to.
my
That's not the motion. That's not the motion on the floor.
That's not the motion. What's the motion, the motion on?
Okay,
Right now,
to repeat the motion,
the
please.
motion on the floor right now is to, the lessee must have if they're gonna use the concession stands, need to have the license and permit. That's the motion on the floor right now.
I would, do a substitute motion to exactly what Tim indicated. We do what Supervisor Martin says, the motion is to make, or to have the contractual party contract out with a vendor to provide, services, food services. And include in the motion that the contracting parties will have a right to ask the board to excuse them from that requirement.
But we're not food and health experts, so how
That is my
can we?
motion. I think that's
We have a
what you
motion.
suggested.
I mean, I'll second that because it is to our discretion once they come and ask. If someone says I only have 22 people, can I please do this? We
You know, have
may-
hot dogs and hamburgers.
Look, you don't think a foodborne illness could affect 22 people just like it could
It
take?
could.
It absolutely could, but this way.
We're all sitting in here right now, we can get COVID, virus. That's a risk everybody takes. But that's my substitute motion. I think.
I'll second that
You have to have a
because it's a
second.
case by case.
She second.
Every single case that comes in here, you're gonna go.
If they want to.
Call the question.
Just call the question. All those in favor of, the substitute motion, will you read the
Okay, the
substitute motion
substitute
now?
motion, from what I understand, is that they, the licensee will need to, if they're gonna use the concession stand, have a licensed permit holder, but that they have the option to come in from the board to request to waive
That's exactly right.
that, whatever.
Because I said it done myself, thought in my motion.
Waive that the
I waived that particular.
Yeah.
Yes.
requirement. I'm sorry. That's the motion, that's the motion. The substitute motion.
Can we have a motion? Do we have a second? You have a second? All those in, have discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed?
No, because I don't like the option of waiving it. I think either we need to have the rule or we don't have the rule. So I'll let that.
Yeah, I vote no, I think we just need to have a not have a
And I vote no because I think we either have the rule or we don't have the rule.
So now I'd like to offer a motion to require on a temporary basis.
Take vote on the motion.
We have a motion.
You already got it.
We've already-
Okay, so we'll go back to the original motion.
And that's because of the health and welfare of our people that are.
Okay, well, we need to have a vote on that one.
On the
So
original.
we do motion.
Even though I was a bit hesitant, I had to say, because with our community centers, they come in and ask us for a waiver all the time, so I do understand the point.
This is
I
just
get
a
it.
temporary.
I know, I'm just saying, I do get it.
Temporary for the-
What it seems like.
For the health and safety of,
Let's vote on that.
Putting the word temporary in the
Call for the motion.
yeah, it is in there.
Temporary as in 30 days, 60 days, or temporary obscure?
Temporary.
When we say the word temporary, do we mean
Well,
obscure
let's wait
or
till the
30?
next, let's do it according to the governor's rules and every time he has an issue, we'll bring it back up. Every time he brings his, new rule and regulation, we will bring it up.
Okay.
Okay? That way, he's coming in either every week or every 2 weeks, no matter when it is, after he makes another order that we can follow, that releases us from some of our restraints and responsibility of health and safety of the citizens of Harrison County, then we will have another meeting and see if we can loosen it up. Maybe by July, it'll be loosened up so that we can have one. Okay, all right. We have a motion.
Change any decision,
Yeah.
That's correct. All right, we have would you repeat this motion?
Okay, so this is the motion, Ms. Martin made the motion, and Supervisor Jones seconded the motion that anybody that is gonna use the concession stands need to have a license food permit at the fairgrounds. Needs to have a license food permit holder.
We have a motion and a second. Right?
It's on
All those in
the
favor, now we'll vote on this. Is there any further discussion on that motion? We have discussed it quite a bit. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. All right, so, thank you. Okay, now, any other things? Okay, we have one more. You want to talk about the community centers, civic centers, and the hurricane shelters, or do we want to discuss that at this meeting, or do we want to do it June 1st? What's the wishes of the board?
I just think, personally, we don't have any information right now to go forward, so we're waiting for June, June. Just be
Well, the
personal.
reason I asked, in particular, the senior centers, they do that big Halloween show, and they need to be in there to practice. And there's about 10 of them, so it would be violating the governor's orders. But I need to give them some kind of direction. Now, I can tell them what the June versus.
It's only 10? 10 people.
The dancers.
I think they do.
But it is indoors.
We waived that just recently, about 10 people at something. 20, you know?
Well, she said it was around 10, so can I ask that we let them allow them to practice? And practice social distance.
And this is in October.
It's not till October.
They better be fantastic if they're gonna break that.
They should practice in, it's seniors.
You wait till the Mardi Gras girls get ready to practice, because they're bigger groups.
But they have a big production. It's pretty nice. That's what I mean.
So you're asking us for a case-by-case consideration on that?
No, it's just 10 people using it, there's no
It's
concession
not a
there.
community, it's a senior
No
center.
food.
But I'm fine with opening all of the capacity, because that's what the governor order says right now.
We've got to find out what the capacity is, I think that's one thing we can.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna get Pat to give us.
Pat, can you give us that, capacity? Did you say that all the community centers had the capacity, or you wanted to check that with code?
I think some do and some don't, but I think Ms. Pam had numbers on some of them, didn't you?
I just, well, I had what
Why
they
don't
had
we
said.
revisit that?
We will-
You would get with code
We
and
don't know if
revisit that.
Yes, ma'am, we'll take care of that. We'll get that for you.
Updated,
Yes, ma'am, we'll take care of that.
because I don't know if they took into consideration that the senior center can open that wall up and expand it too, so I'd like that.
I can say, I will say that 10 would be okay. I think we're
You really
good with
think
10 on fire, okay?
10? Okay.
How about 20, Pat? Did you negotiate up to 20?
From a fire standpoint only, not from the governor's part, and Tim can address that, but yes, I think we're okay there.
All right, we have a motion to recess until June. I'm sorry, wait. Okay, so
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
I know that on the governor's orders, as far as the parks, at one time it had from 9 AM to 7 PM. But he removed that out, so we're having questions, we're calling and asking, what's the hours, or how long can they be there? So we might need to consider that too.
It's just 7?
Right now, originally it was from 9 AM to 7 PM, but he's lifted the hours, we have no hours on his order right now.
I would say maybe 8, maybe keep it, that's dark. That will keep the lights down, because we don't have anyone to go out and turn the lights on and off, and there's the issues with that's the most expensive part of it.
So they need to be, They need to be off the grounds of facilities by April.
And then
Does that need to be in the form of a motion, or do we just?
Yes.
Let this, we'd like to extend the hours from, 7 o'clock PM to 8 PM, I'm sorry, 8 PM.
I mean,
Have a motion, second? Discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. We also, Reaper, would you give us a short report, dear, please?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
you dear, I apologize.
Again, the numbers for Harrison County are slowly going up, not a lot. Over the last couple of days, we've seen the plus of 4 cases, confirmed cases. Testing is still going on, but testing is not as rampant as what it was a couple of weeks ago. Some is now the workforce are having to go get tested to come back to verify to their employers. So we'll see some of that. The state death totals did go up. We're right under 12,000, 11,967. Out of those cases reporting off the list, 6,000, almost 7,000 people have had it, but have gone through the 14, 21 days and don't have it now. So that's a positive side of that. On nursing homes, long-term health care, of course, that's where most of our deaths in the state have come from. The numbers latter part of last week were 115 or so. They're down to 87 nursing homes that there has been a positive case, be it an employee or a nursing home resident. So there is widespread testing on those, and they are getting the deep cleaning so that that true vulnerable population is at better care now and hopefully not as much risk. Again, we're waiting to see what the governor's executive orders do. This is that moving target, as Tim mentioned. The virus, some early assumptions that we told y'all is that we're thinking sunlight, UV rays, higher humidities are a good thing to help fight it. Dr. Dobbs, the state health officer, is kind of shrugging his shoulders a little bit, we think, but again, the experts don't know. So, the encouragement is wearing masks. It is one of those that within the next few days, I'll probably come to you with some type of a mask giveaway that the state will provide, and then we'll be able to give to citizens. But we don't have that worked out yet. The state hasn't sent those masks down here to us. But it's one of those to get people more engaged, out more, but make sure that they're doing face covering. There was, and I'm going to say that I'm still trying to learn a little bit more. There are a couple of childhood diseases that are out there that are COVID related. They did report yesterday that in central Mississippi, one of those newer diseases that they've kind of identified, there was a young child that lost his life because of that. So,
Where was
Is
that?
that this very,
central Mississippi.
from what I have read and heard, is that it's very rare. But if there's long-term, anytime there's a child with a higher temperature than supposed to be, to pay attention to it. But it's very rare. It has been here many times. I think they called it a different name, and it's inflammation of the blood vessels throughout the body.
It's something like that, but they're not for sure the play of COVID. We are seeing COVID toes in children. It is affecting people into establishing more blood clots, which they don't quite understand. There's a lot that are moving parts that we just don't know. They don't know. And the clinical tests are happening. The only reason I bring up that one child's death is that it was reported on the East Coast, and then they were quick to identify in central Mississippi. The child was in the hospital, and they identified that. So that has the health department a little bit more concerned, should we say. The other is influenza is still out. There was a fatality in the state, which was not a COVID case, of influenza flu. So, we still have to worry about that other flu that is alarming to us also.
Let me ask you a question in reference to the 6 deaths in Harrison County. Do you have any information on those folks as far as their age or any underlying conditions?
I do know of 2, but the others, no, that's
The 2 that you know of?
the 2 were elderly, and they had traveled some, but they were not an out of country travel. They had underlying health conditions, but it was.
When the state reports those deaths, they don't indicate any information about the.
Not directly to us. We have to go back through and look at the state totals to see if they do meet that higher category, be it if it was something, the chronic illnesses, be it heart, lungs, liver, like that, but they don't break it down to us. I think they do break the ethnic groups down, but they just give us on the health department page, and we've asked, they just show us a little graph, and
It seems like that information would be pertinent to how we react to them. What we do and how we react to this virus would have a lot to do with the type of people, the age of the people, the medical conditions of the folks that would determine how we react to it. We all in discussions here today, worrying about this, worrying about that, trying to, protect it. But we don't have the information that should give us information as to how we should deal with this. And a lot of people are having this, for lack of a better way to say it, give up their normal lives because we don't have that information.
yes, it has been asked, maybe the doctors hear something different. They have doctor calls, the hospitals talk to the health department. They won't release that information to us. We get the generic side, and again, we try to look at the age group across and see what is in our region.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, I think I mentioned before.
Supervisor Jones, I apologize.
We still don't have a breakdown in Harrison County of the cities.
No, sir. Did put that request back in, but their answer quickly was that they'll look at it geographically as our health district, but they will not give us a breakdown. They don't have the manpower is what they said to give us a breakdown citywide.
Rupert, do they have these people's addresses? Can we just not sort it by zip code?
They do, but when we ask something specific, they bring up HIPAA.
Well, they probably are.
Are the hospitals doing that? Did I not see some type of documentation that they're going by neighborhoods?
I haven't seen that. What we get from the hospital is just, they'll tell us the availability of bed space. But that doesn't come from the health department. They'll put it as a draft out there on their page, or they'll send us some alerts, but, typically they won't give us something down into the weeds to us.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm
just
sorry,
one quick
Supervisor
thing.
Jones.
I know you guys on top of it with FEMA, but I'm sure it's not gonna be business as usual. There's something for hurricane season in terms of the shelters.
No, it
So in that
is.
way, I don't want to hold the meeting up, but maybe at where meeting in June, we can get like an update on.
Yes, come June 1, or the first meeting, I do want to spend some time with you and talk to you about the shelters, the availability of who we may be able to depend on. I don't look for the service organizations to help us a lot, simply because of the workforce and all that. The numbers, and Pat and I have been talking about the numbers, which we have to look at. It's going to be it's going to have to be a more systematic opening, and we're going to have to go outside some of the normal realm that we look at, and we've been in discussion with the school board. But, you know, shelter population is going to be cut truly in half because of social distancing.
Richard, do we have the equipment necessary? Do we have all the masking and all those things that we're gonna need if we do have to?
We're working on that, and I can say that right now, I'm comfortable to say that for Harrison County, if we had to open up a shelter today, or shelters, that we could separate and we could mask everybody that's going into that shelter and continuously have them wear the mask while they are sheltered, and semi-adequately have them sanitize their hands multiple times.
So we would have to have, we need to, I guess, have that capacity again, on the shelter, especially the shelters.
We've worked out space, and realistically, unless it's catastrophic,
Don't say that.
River, do you feed, you know,
no. We have even requested MREs. I've already asked that of the state, and I've asked one of the charitable organizations, could they accommodate, but there will be no food, no cooked food. It'll be a meal ready to eat. May not be what you want, but.
How about pets? That's always an issue.
We got one pet shelter, pet-friendly shelter. The Red Cross has kind of pushed out, if it's the service animal, they can't, you know, we have to let a service animal in. If it's a companion animal, the Red Cross is saying no companion animals on shelters that they would offer.
Let me ask this question, probably children chime in. Okay, if we open our, I know we said we'll talk about this in a minute, but if we open up our shelters and we go have capacity, we're gonna be required to provide the social distances and the mask. So if that's a requirement from us, you know, we're gonna be required to monitor that, those various shelters. And if so, then we got to allocate the manpower to go in there and monitor, because it's required.
Somebody gonna have to explain to me. We're gonna open up the shelters, we got a serious storm coming, we're gonna open up the shelters, and we're gonna say, only 50% can show up. So if I'm the 51%, you go back to your house and drink.
I'm gonna give you,
50% of the people that need a shelter because we worried about the COVID virus. Send them back.
We have
Don't make sense there, Rupert.
we have an ideal world.
What you're doing is you're adding more shelters.
And we have, if it's catastrophic.
To make up for the, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
To Dr. Ladner's question on if it's catastrophic, all the rules, and we have been in this discussion with the state, and actually we've already been in discussion with FEMA on this. If it's catastrophic, we're going to protect everybody feasibly possible to get them away from the water and protect them
What we
from the
need to be
wind.
working on is identifying alternative shelters that are safe and be prepared to move people.
We have,
That's what I was getting.
no, we have that. It's, you know, it's not the ideal. But yes, we've gone back to what we did 15 years ago, and we're looking at all those buildings, and we've got a guesstimate of numbers, ideally, which Pat and I have talked about, the kind of an ideal, but a realistic, but, you know, those numbers aren't where I'd like to see them. But if it's that catastrophic, we're gonna protect everybody. We're gonna pull them into the shelter, we're gonna get you a mask, and we'll deal with COVID afterwards.
But you've identified additional shelters that could be used.
Yes, ma'am.
If we don't have catastrophic, we just have to shelter people as usual, the ones we usually have.
You know, of course, the big three are our 361s. And then we have the 2 361 schools, high schools. But we are going back down the list. And, again, we're working with those partners, that this building is rated, but again, we have to get them away from the water and hide them from the wind.
And Sheriff, the contraflow, am I saying that correctly? That too, I think, has been already it's been talked about, recently in civil defense, when they open up, and let New Orleans this way. Are you involved in all that as well?
It's all out of control.
Oh, no, okay. But will we have to do any additional, traffic because of them coming down I-10 and?
We have no jurisdiction on state highways, so, when it comes to the flow of traffic. So that would be totally up to the governor. And,
They did tell us the only contraflow, if it would happen, and our governor's talking to Louisiana, would be 59 goes into Pearl River County. That would be the contraflow route that they would be using. Now, doesn't say that they won't try to come in on I-10 or on 53.
I'm just curious, I hadn't heard another commentary on it. So, thank you. Pam?
I don't have anything.
Tim?
Unless you have any questions.
Mr. Lang? Supervisor Lang? Supervisor Jones? Did you get that right?
Yeah, I'll grade Whitfield and has sent a proposal for grades at fairgrounds by zones. And I didn't know if you wanted him to discuss that or you don't want to. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense between just my personal opinion. And it, the numbers add up correct, that they're more in line with the other facilities. I think it's a good thing to adopt. I just don't know if we should, if y'all all like it and we're gonna adopt it, let's pick the date on when it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is
It makes a
something we
lot of
need to
sense.
definitely look at in our discussions. We also need to look at the other rural properties that we rent and bring them more in line. But I agree. I don't know if we should do it today. I think we need to have a little opportunity to maybe digest it more.
Maybe put it
I
on the
agree.
first
Maybe
meeting.
June meeting or something.
Yeah, then we can say it takes effect July, pick
Yeah.
some day.
Someday, like
But I like and you did a great job. Great.
Yeah.
Great job. Yes, okay, well, I would like to put this on, to make a decision on the June 1st meeting.
I think we really need to seriously start looking at the other stuff, especially at the Civic Center, but the other end of the property, Pam, y'all might be looking at some of that to come up with some more reasonable fees. I know you had some issues with that kind,
Yeah.
and I did too, so. we need
Some
to-
of the properties we're renting for like 3 cents per square foot.
And see, now's a good time to address these issues because they've been closed.
That's right.
So as they come back online, we can say, okay, let's look at these new fee schedules. This is the reason behind it, and I think people will accept it more. They're not big increases, but there are increases because we're too low right now. Especially if you look at the other areas where we're close.
And that goes along with the policies that we might want to look at. Some of our policies are about 20 years old that we can also include in the.
But that's something our HR person is.
Okay,
I'm good.
good, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Recess.
Recess. I want to thank our IT and our